Is Tabletop Weekly, and we are the partners of Solarian Games. I'm Jayson.
And I'm Peter.
We're expecting Paul Stormberg tonight. I'm not seeming to hear from him yet. If he shows up, we will add him in. Otherwise, we'll do all the other stuff we had to talk about today, and we'll make a little notice of that and try to get him back. So we'll see what's going on with Paul. Okay, what do we got going on this week? We are going to be talking about, we're going to mention the Analog Union. We mentioned before ModCon, that's still coming up, so we're going to give people another look at that. Some places I'll be running Top Secret soon. And then our stories today are going to be the Strong Museum has got a new virtual history for D&D.
Right.
Starbreeze cancels one of the many D&D game projects that seem to be floating around out there. Kickstarter is going on strike. Some of the people are. And we'll mention the Gygax Memorial. We'll try to talk about it more with Paul next time, but we'll at least let people know what's going on that we know about so far.
Yeah.
So before we get into the stories, if you are watching on YouTube, have you subscribed yet? Please, it makes a big difference to us. Just hit subscribe, get us on there. It'll get us viewed by more people. Liking helps, commenting helps, all of that helps. So thank you for helping grow the audience.
Yes.
And if you are listening on or if you're listening on a podcast, you can review us on Apple Podcasts. That helps over there a lot as well. So thank you. And I see some people in the chat saying they have subscribed. Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right. What do we want to dive into first today? What do we got?
Well, we've got Analog Union. I've got I've got the website up. You want me to share that one?
Bring it up. All right. So we mentioned last week that we have started a new thing. It's called Analog Union. And what this is, it is a newsletter that you can get for free. It's very cool. If we go to the other graphic for a second, you can see who all we have in the union. The Analog Union. Sure, no problem. We'll bring the other graphic up here, the About.
Sorry.
You just click About.
There you go.
There we go. All right, so we've got 8 different indie game companies in here. When you get the newsletter, you get just anything that's coming up from each of these folks. Promotions, sometimes there's freebies. There's cool things like Lord Blood's Crypt of Cool from Joey Royale, likes to write about that. We've got Brian. Well, you know what? Let's take a look at the last newsletter. Let's go back to last week's and we'll give a quick rundown of what we had because it's some cool news.
All right, hold on, give me 1 second.
All right. So September 23rd. Oh, did I give you the wrong one?
September 16th?
No, go back. Let's get the, if you're on the site, go to September 23rd.
My bad. I clicked the wrong one.
Yeah. Let's see. So for the last one, we had stuff from 3 companies. We had Get Haunted Industries, Arcane Sword, and us at Solarian. Actually, hang on a second. Is this right? I thought we had something that was, I haven't put up the latest. Can I share my screen? Can I do that? Or should I can just read?
I think you can, if you hit share.
Okay, let's give it a try. Let's see what happens if I do that. Hold on a second here. Because I want to give people a real view of what they really get. Okay, so I'm going to go here. How do I do this? Oh my God.
Hit share down the bottom.
Yeah, I know. Technology. Here we go. Share.
Yeah, there you go.
Share a window. Yeah. Share this. All right. What's happening? Am I sharing my email?
You are now.
All right, everybody. So this was the latest. We were talking about ModCon, of course. Let's actually get the full thing up here. Okay, so here we go. Here was the full last newsletter. We had a bunch of cool stuff, and I wanted to talk about this first one anyway. So Ham and Egg Publishing, that's Hambone, that's John McGuire, has a new adventure for the Sickest Witch. That is Justin Soroy. And by the way, I finally figured out the right pronunciation. Yeah, I asked John. So it's actually really easy to remember because his name is Sirois. So it's like Sir Roy.
Oh, is he French? Is that a French name?
But that's how you say it. So I'm going to get it right now. So Justin Soroy has this great game called The Sickest Witch. And John has got a new thing called Under the Shadow of the Noonday Witch, with political intrigue, fire and brimstone, medieval torture, all sorts of things. They're trying to cleanse the world of witches. Don't let them do it. So they're going to be up on Kickstarter soon. You can get into the pre-release. So that was one of the things we had in there. Of course, stuff about ModCon, which we'll talk about anyway. Some cool new stuff from Salt Heart. Zombie Roads. We've had Kevin on the show before to talk about it. The first character sheets are out now, so you can actually get a chance to see what those are like. That's cool. And then from Joey, we get some great stuff in the Get Haunted Industries section. Joey loves to come in and just kind of big up everybody else too. So here's something from Whittle Goblin, Night Thirst, tabletop vampire showdown, where you and up to 5 friends compete to drink the most blood before sunrise.
That's awesome. That's actually cool.
Joey says, cool. It's like when me and my pizza pals go to Luigi's Spaghetti Buffet on Tuesday nights, but it's typo negative instead of fettuccine Alfredo.
Oh, Christ. I'm Oneg. Damn it.
And more stuff about Justin Soroy, some stuff about Oldest Child. And of course, Arcane Sword Press. Also, Brian writes a great piece in here. He's talking about Flames of Orion, which will be run at Arcane Con, which, by the way, is coming up in November. We'll be there. This is the kind of stuff you get every week for free. So why not sign up, right? Just go ahead and get some of that.
Get some.
Yeah, get you some of that.
All right. So next,
what do we got next here?
Next, I believe we wanted to talk about
ModCon.
Did I hide it? I thought I had ModCon pulled up.
Why don't you tell everybody about ModCon?
I know I had it pulled up. What happened to it?
All right. Well,
anyway.
Yeah. ModCon is you know what? There you nope, that's not
I got it. No, it's coming.
Oh,
there it is.
There we go. Look at that. Okay.
Yep.
So ModCon, what we have here is a picture of where it's going to be. This is the fabulous Smith College Conference Center in Northampton, Massachusetts. ModCon is the first convention devoted to modern era tabletop role-playing. So this is where you can come and play anything that is set in the 20th or the 21st centuries. So that could be Delta Green, Call of Cthulhu, Top Secret, could be Top Secret, Masks, Marvel Superheroes, Twilight 2000, all these kind of games.
Cyberpunk even fits in,
or Blue, or what's the new one?
Red. Cyberpunk Red.
Is that the new one? I thought it was Cyberpunk Ultra Blue Menthol or something, or Green Mint.
No, the green colored one was the last version. The red is this version.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't know anything. Okay, so the latest any Cyberpunk. You can play any Cyberpunk.
Whatever.
But yeah,
you can do
going to be
was it the 2013?
Yeah. So coming up May 2026, you can go right now to modcon.games and submit events. So we're open for event submissions right now. Badges will go on sale probably in January. All right. What else we got going on?
You are going somewhere, so I'm going to share that.
Oh, this is just a little thing. I wanted to bring it up. So we're going to have the folks from House of Books and Games on hopefully next week, depending. Maybe we'll have them and Paul at the same time. Who knows? Anyway, they have a little mini con called HBG Con. And so if you want to play some Top Secret on October 18th up in, I don't remember where it's going to be. It's somewhere in northern. It's near Hartford, Connecticut. They're doing it at a brewery. Lupoletto. So I'll be running some Top Secret there. It'll be a lot of fun. Come on out and check it out.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back here. So let's do some news.
Okay. What's the news?
We're going to start with, you're going to start with the Strong Museum.
Yeah. Okay. So the Strong is a very cool place. It is up in Rochester, New York. And I'm trying to quickly pull up my notes about it here. It's up in Rochester, New York. It was founded in 1968. It's devoted. It's an educational institution and a museum. So scholars study there, and the public can go and look at things. They even have archives stacks that you can go make an appointment to look through. And I haven't gone yet, but I have an appointment as a researcher to go and look at a few things that I wanted to see. needed to see.
Mhm.
And recently they put on a wonderful exhibit for the 50th anniversary of D&D. The thing about the Strong is, I'm not sure, but I think they have the largest D&D collection in the world. At least maybe the largest tabletop gaming collection overall. I don't know, in terms of just D&D, but they have the largest tabletop gaming collection. They have archives that nobody else has. They have ephemera and one-offs that nobody else has. And they now have made a little sort of virtual exhibit that I thought we could sort of swing through.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, and first of all, this is what's kind of cool is look where it's hosted.
Where is it hosted?
Well, up at the top there, you can see it's Google Arts and Culture.
Arts and Culture. Yeah, cool. Very cool.
So it's interesting. It's not the Strong themselves doing it. They kind of partnered up with Google here. What I love about this is how accessible it makes it. So I think what we're going to look at here, this is not a super deep dive. This isn't everything you could ever think of, but it's such a great introduction. So right off the bat, we see some Sutherland art here from the first D&D basic box, from the Holmes set or Mold. I always mix up Holmes and Moldvay. And as you start scrolling down through, we're going to actually walk through 50 years of D&D. So let's go through it. And right off the bat, what comes up here first? You want to tell people what they're seeing? I'm going to grab something while you do that.
All right. So I have to read this. It says, "Corner of the Table." It's an editorial. Dave Arneson, right? So
Corner of the Table. This is something super special, and they're going to show you a little bit about it here. But Corner of the Table was Dave Arneson's newsletter that he put out in the 1960s, and you can see it's basically just a typed up newsletter, and it's one of my prized possessions. Is what I have here in my hands is a copy of a later Corner of the Table. He only made enough of these to send to his friends, basically. So that's why on mine, you see at the top, it says Mike Carr has written his name on it.
Oh, crap.
So
did Mike give that to you? Did you buy it from him, or
No.
did you find it somewhere?
No, speaking of Paul Stormberg, so Paul Stormberg also runs a thing called the Collector's Trove. And he manages essentially selling off people's collections, really high visibility people. I don't know the right way to say it, high profile. And so I believe this was Mike Carr's collection let me take a look. There's actually a little certificate on the back. This is from the collection of Jim Barber. So I'm not sure why Jim had Mike's. I guess just because he played games with Mike, and Mike must have given him his copy.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's funny, the little circles, right? All these different people, like, it's Mike Carr's book, but I got it from this other known player, right?
Right. Yeah, I have a couple of Gary Gygax's things that are because he gave them to somebody and they gave them to me, and
Right. That's cool.
So this first part of the exhibit, we see here volume 4, July issue something. In fact, I'm going to pull it up on my screen elsewhere so I can get a better look. But basically, this is talking about the origins. So they start out with what I think is a great way to show the origins is that before D&D, before there was any of this, there was wargaming. And it kind of really gets into the roots of this. This is why Dave Arneson met Gary Gygax in the first place, so they could wargame by mail and then sometimes in person, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So this is just kind of a great opportunity to see a real piece of ephemera that the Strong Museum has, something that is very rare to find, and that is the one where he first talked about, hey, I got this idea for something, and it later became D&D.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then look at this. Of course, everybody knows this one.
You know what we're looking at now?
Yes. Copy of Chainmail.
What's that?
Oh, well, that's the is it a precursor to D&D? I think, yeah.
You can have a lot of fun watching people get mad when you say it is or it isn't.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how to address it. I don't know if it's the original D&D or if it's the precursor. I don't know what you call it.
it's a really good step to have in a timeline like this, because I think it's an oversimplification, but not an unfair one, to say that D&D is sort of a melding of Dave Arneson's ideas about role-playing and Gary Gygax's mechanics about how to fight, how to set the rules. Because in Chainmail, so here we're seeing a thing from Guidon Games, and the reason that this is the one they're showing is because before there was TSR, Gary Gygax wrote for a company called Guidon Games, and Don Lowry was the I can't believe I remembered the name off the top of my head. Don Lowry was the owner of that, and Gary came to him and said, "Hey, I've got some stuff I've written. Will you publish it for me?" And that's really what this is. This is,
I see,
the game. It's just another wargaming game. You know, it's medieval miniatures war game. But what that is there is the first step in a series of chainmail editions, which would eventually see man-to-man fighting. So there you got your, rather than having army versus army, man-to-man fighting. And then most importantly, fantasy. Because up until this point, wargaming was exclusively real world.
right?
If you, and mostly Napoleonic, but people would play different eras. But Gary, for reasons of his own, decided it would be fun to actually have wizards and orcs and all this kind of stuff. And every wargamer was like, that sucks. That's not the way I grew up playing it.
Back in my
You kids with your new ideas about gaming, that really sucks.
right.
Sound familiar? But he pushed on with it. He put fantasy in there. So then you take his fantasy rules for man-to-man fighting, combine those with Dave Arneson's ideas about role-playing, and you basically get D&D.
Let's see. Then we get this.
And there it is.
Right.
And there it is. This is such a great way to exhibit it. I love this.
Yeah.
I don't know which copy this is or whose it is or editions and all that. All I can say is that we're looking at a brown box, the first official version of Dungeons & Dragons that was sold to the public, hand assembled by Gary and who knows who else.
You can tell because the sticker on the top of the box is just the tiniest bit off.
Yes. So I guess the Blooms would have been there at that point, and Ernie would have been helping, and everybody. I'm not going to try to name names, but the point is, a bunch of people sitting in a basement put these boxes together, slap the stickers on the front, and that's why, you know, any brown box you buy is going to be a little different from another one.
Yeah,
you know, I've seen ones where the sticker's almost on the edge of the box.
Yeah, because you probably can't remove it once it's on, right?
Yeah, and you're not going to waste a box. You paid money for those stickers in those boxes.
Yeah.
So they did a great job showing that first part, showing the little 3 books you got in the beginning, setting the precedent for, I guess, a trope that would continue to this day of RPGs having 3 little books to start with. You know, so they had 3 books here. When AD&D came out, they had 3 books to start with that. Right. So here we've got the and by the way, you'll notice that none of these say the words role-playing on them.
No, they don't.
They don't. They are. Well, can you read it?
Yeah, it says rules for fantastic medieval war game campaign. Oh, sorry. Rules for fantastic medieval war game campaigns playable with paper and pencil and miniature figures.
That's rolls right off the tongue. So yeah, they were still calling it a war game basically when they sold this. And so you've got stuff about men and magic, monsters and treasure, and underworld and wilderness adventures. And by the way, so when you bought this version of D&D, it said you're going to need a copy of Chainmail because you need to run some combat, and you're going to need a copy of Wilderness Adventure or something like that. I always get it wrong. I own a copy, but you know, I forget. Basically, a wilderness board game from a completely different company that happened to have a good board in it. So like, why don't you get that too?
So, this is interesting. So Simon Harding says, when he first started playing it, it was with photocopies of those books. Now, what's interesting to me is if it was in that time era, like somewhere in that time zone, would it have been cheaper to have photocopies? I mean, I guess if you photocopied them at work, but I remember when I was a kid, the the local stores and stuff, you could pay to have photocopies made, and it was like $1 a page or something back then. So I would imagine, depending on how you got, remember when photocopies were brand new
Yeah,
and you'd go into
but
like
I don't think you would have
Highs
been
or
paying that.
7-Eleven.
Yeah,
I can't
you would
remember
have gone
what
to
it
a
was.
Kinko's
It was a lot.
I mean, every in the 1970s, there were a lot of local copy shops. All the campuses had them and stuff like that. But you could also go to your
Right.
school. The point is, it was $10 to buy the book or buy the box.
Yeah.
Which is like about $50 or $60 today.
Oh, here we go. He says you could only get it by mail order from the UK or USA in those days when he was in New Zealand. So yeah, he would have had to have had a copy, like someone else buy it for him or make a photocopy of someone else who got theirs.
And I think
So
that's the big thing is it
makes
wasn't
sense.
just the cost. It was how do I even get a box?
Right.
Where do I write to? Am I going to send it to me? You know what? My friend has a copy of it right here. We're all going to make photocopies. It's easier.
Yeah.
But you know what? If they didn't photocopy it, it wouldn't have spread as fast as it did. It wouldn't have worked out. So,
Yeah.
And he's foreign currency. So, anyways, very, very rough beginnings. And so now we get down to the first.
What is this?
This is wonderful. This is wonderful what we're looking at here. So, this is some stuff from Bill Hoyt, who you'll still run into at GaryCon to this day. And so this is actually his personal adventure. He was a teacher, so he had his 6th grade class play Dungeons and Dragons and write up their reports.
Oh, so nice.
Yeah, so here you see like the I'm assuming, you know what? I shouldn't assume. I don't know if his school kids drew that or if Bill drew that, but there's some just kind of hand drawn a picture of a knight and a dragon, and it's just it's his class notes.
Very cool. That is really cool.
This is what I'm talking about. The Strong has such an amazing collection. Obviously, they're the only people in the world that have this.
And then we get to the basic set.
So, yep, they're moving forward now. They show the first time you could buy a copy of D&D that actually had all the rules in it.
Yeah.
Because if you bought the version that Simon bought or photocopied in New Zealand back in the day, you were dealing with a game that wasn't complete. The only way to learn how to play it was to puzzle it out, and they expected you as a war gamer to work your own crap out anyways, and then you had to buy all these other things to make it work. It was a complete amateur hobbyist thing. Finally, they came out with the Holmes edition. This is the first one. Dr. J. Eric Holmes, who actually put the whole thing together, boiled it down to its essence, and put it in a box and said, there you go. This is actually everything you need so that if somebody who's not in this insular little world can play D&D.
Oh my God. I got a question for Simon. If you're still there in the chat, where the hell did you get your dice? Did you guys share dice? Like were they accessible? Like how hard would it be to get those dice in New Zealand? I know it was a different company, but like, was it easy to get or did you guys have like one set that you all shared?
You know what? Let's go to the next step while we're waiting, because that's a perfect segue.
Yep.
Because here's the dice.
Yeah.
So before this basic set came out, if you wanted dice, you had to figure it out. Like you're saying, like, where am I going to get them? I don't know. It's 1974. I've never heard of anything other than a 6-sided die. I honestly don't know how people did it. But
when I started, we had access. That was in 1980. Yeah. So that was easy.
Well, here in 1977, I believe it was. I'm going to double check. 1975. Simon's saying here in the chat, we didn't have a D20.
3D. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's amazing.
Hey man, improvise.
Yeah. So the dice that we're looking at here are the first dice that ever came in a Dungeons and Dragons box, where they were actually being sold by TSR. And one of the things you're going to notice is there's a very conspicuous absence of one of the. There's only 5 dice here, not 6.
Oh yeah, there's no D10.
That's right. You see a D4.
We didn't need. Technically, you didn't need a D10.
Well, here's how they did it. So the reason they did not have a D10, any geometry nerds
Yes.
who don't already know the answer can say,
Right.
what's different about these shapes versus a D10? It's not a platonic solid.
Right. Right.
So a D10 is not a platonic solid, therefore you couldn't buy one.
No.
Because they basically, I think they use molds that scientific companies had made, like educational companies.
Mm-hmm.
They used these things to teach geometry to kids. So they said, here's your platonic solids, which is, 4, 6, 8, 12, and 20 sides.
Right.
So what's different about the die that you're seeing there at the bottom that looks like a D20 is that's actually a D10.
Mm.
That D20 is numbered 0 to 9 twice. So if you wanted to do a D20, there was a different way of measuring it. I'm not going to try to remember right now, but the point is that's your D10. For whatever reason, they decided rather than a D20, they would make the 20-sided die be numbered 0 to 9 twice.
Well, you do what we did. We take a marker, like a fine point marker, and color in half the numbers, and then that was our 20.
Maybe that's the answer. I think you're right.
That's what we did. I mean, we would
Yeah.
just get a permanent, like one of those really fine tip permanent markers, and just color in the numbers that were 0 to 9 on one half of it.
Simon's saying for D10 we actually used a drop box to begin with. So I wonder, do you mean chits in a box and you pull from the box? Let us know.
All right, that's interesting. That's awesome. All right.
Building a fan base. Okay, so the next thing on here we see now it starts to expand. We see the first issue of the Dragon, which worth insane amounts of money now. And this is Tim Kask essentially getting what I think was a brilliant approach, was to have a magazine about Dungeons and Dragons, well, about tabletop role-playing in general, that was not a house organ.
Mm-hmm.
Because other companies were doing magazines at the time. Avalon Hill had the General. Well, that's one.
Mm-hmm.
Other companies were doing magazines. White Dwarf was whoever. But they were mostly house organs at that point. And Tim insisted that the Dragon should have editorial independence so you could actually trust them. They would say bad things about TSR products sometimes if they were not good.
Right.
Amazing. And so now we see them continuing to grow. If we keep on going, we'll go a little quicker through this, but we get next to the first player's handbook, which was actually
second book.
Thank you. Second book to come out, but all of these things were just, and TSR starts making their own miniatures. You can see them now. The next thing that shows up after the miniatures is Gen Con. Of course, Gen Con predates Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
Gen Con even predates TSR.
Mm-hmm.
It began as something that was organized under the auspices of the International Federation of Wargamers, the IFW, of which Gary Gygax was running it. So Gen Con kind of grows into this thing that eventually becomes the TSR convention. So this is a great flyer here. I happen to have a copy of this. I'm really proud of this one. But it's beautiful looking, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very cool. Can you blow that up and make it a poster for your wall?
Not a bad idea. I think I should.
Yeah.
But
that'll be a great poster.
I'm going to drop back over into the chat here for a second. So Simon says that the Dropbox. I like this one. You go ahead.
I love it too. This is awesome.
You drop a die into a box that's marked out with 10 spaces, and wherever it lands, that's your number.
Right. Doesn't matter what the die
genius.
says. It's whatever you roll. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm really happy to see House of Books and Games is on now. And who, like I said, HBG Con, do it. Bert says it was chits that you pull from a box. So that's another way of doing it.
Oh, cool.
There was a moment somewhere in the whole history of TSR where they ran out of dice for interesting reasons, but they had to put a bunch of punch out chits in there to essentially substitute for dice.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It really is. It's funny when you think back to like how, at the time somebody would be like, oh, this is really cheap and cheesy. And what are these guys doing? They don't know what they're doing and stuff. But when you look back at it, it's actually really awesome. Like, the inventive stuff that people had to do, because you got to remember they're bringing stuff that's never existed. That's why it was so just crazy, and that's an awesome time to be around to experience, this, whatever the hell they're trying to figure out.
So true. It's so true. So we'll fly through a little bit more of these. So we see here this is all things from the Strong's collection. So it's really nice to see. Do you know the name? Okay, let's describe what we're showing here. We're showing a catalog, TSR Hobbies Games and Accessories catalog, your gateway to adventure. You've got the little arch, and you've got some treasure, which is all the TSR games like Top Secret behind there. And then there's a wizard, a cartoon wizard. Do you know his name?
I do not.
Does anybody in the chat know who we're looking at? I want to give the chat a moment to play some trivia here. There is a wizard here, and he actually has a name.
Oh, all right.
And I've just spilled my drink. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, y'all, if I have some bourbon on my shirt for the rest of the show, that's why. What a horrible thing. Okay. So anyways, before we pull that up, what we're talking about here is some more of the special things that the House of Books, or sorry, not the House of Books and Games, that the Strong Museum has in their collection. And this is a neat one because they actually use this particular thing as a chance to talk about the Satanic Panic, the false rumors about a student dying in gaming tunnels, mazes and monsters, all of that. Since I don't see anybody in the chat pulling it up, the answer to my trivia question is that the wizard's name is Morley the Wizard.
Morley, okay.
That's Morley. He was a mascot for TSR. They even animated him at some point. It was very cute.
Surprised he didn't make it to the cartoon, huh? Oh, Brian.
No, he did not. So they have, again, there's great stuff in their collection. This is somebody's personal dungeon, a mega dungeon, I think is what we're really looking at here, called Gormenghast. It's just beautiful to see all of these artifacts from the 1970s and 80s. And of course, it moved into computer gaming, as you can see. Oh, Brian put Morley in the chat.
This was actually a great game.
Yeah, I never played it.
I never owned it, but I played it.
What are we looking at for people who are listening?
Oh, so it's a Pool of Radiance. So SSI, Strategic Simulations Incorporated, they put out the first D&D game. And I think I want to say there was 3 of them. I could be off, but I'm pretty sure there was at least 3 of them in this series. And it was, oh God, was it the first kind of CRPG? I think it might have been.
No, definitely not.
No? Okay.
Well, okay. Just quick little dive into computer RPG. Everything starts with a game called Beneath Apple Manor.
Okay.
And another game called Adventure. So both similar times, but they were just kind of follow the text adventure, left, right, get treasure, kill monsters.
What I meant by that was
the first time you could actually create a character,
right, and
carry them on from adventure to adventure was a game called Emon. And that was a freeware or a shareware thing that came out. All this before Pool of Radiance.
Okay.
But this is definitely one of the very first. It's one of the
earliest. This is really early on. This had to have been 87, 88, somewhere in there.
I thought it was earlier than that, but I don't know.
It might have been.
Early.
It might have been.
Early for sure.
So, you can see on the front of the box it has
88. You're right. 88.
Was it? 88. Okay.
Yeah.
It has a big floppy disk. It actually has one of the, instead of the little 3 1/4, has a 5.5 inch floppy disk.
You mean a medium floppy disk? Those ain't the big ones, buddy.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, if you had a home computer, that would be the big one, right?
Well, they're 8-inch.
Oh, I never saw those. That's too.
Well,
I never used a computer that used one of those. All right, that's cool.
Yeah, but here's something that's kind of cool though is take a look at this artwork. I mean, that's so you can see that's Clyde Caldwell's signature. You can't read it, but if you know his signature, that's what it is there. They put the same level of effort and quality into this they put into their print releases.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a Clyde Caldwell original piece for Pool of Radiance. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's got to be a painting, right?
It is a painting. That's an oil painting.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool.
So beautiful stuff. And then, kind of on into the future. So we see the latest D&D monster manual. You see kind of coming back to the same sort of things, bringing back the old cartoon, all the ways that it's moving forward, and including finally Honor Among Thieves, the movie. So it skips over a lot in the middle. Definitely.
Yeah, there's a ton. Yeah.
But I just think if somebody asks you, like, where does D&D come from or what's its history, point them to this. It's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We just walked through the whole thing. It won't take them long to read. It's so fun to see, and hopefully it'll inspire some curiosity and somebody who wants to know more.
Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool. All right. So next up, we've got here. I got a news story. Starbreeze. All right. So Starbreeze cancels a co-op D&D video game. So they had a planned co-op Dungeons and Dragons video game, and it was the same studio that did a Payday franchise. Now, I didn't know what that was, but apparently that's a franchise of games is pretty popular. It's a first-person shooter game centered around, heists and criminal activities and stuff. And it looked good. I mean, but it looks like, it looks like all of them, like Grand Theft Auto or any of those other ones. So, this is a company that knows how to make games. But apparently they got involved in this and they went fairly deep because it looks like they're taking quite a hit for canceling this.
Ooh, I'm looking at the numbers. Ooh.
Yeah, no, right? They initially announced that they were calling it Project Baxter, which I have to imagine is a one of those secret titles, like back when we were using
internal. Yeah.
And
so the internal games always have some sort of thing that means nothing to the public. My favorite one of all time, there was an internal name for an Apple product around the mid 80s. And it was originally going to be called Project Sagan.
Right. Okay.
Because they all loved Carl Sagan.
Right.
And somehow it leaked out what their internal project name was for it. And Carl Sagan's manager, sent them a letter saying, don't do that. You don't have the right to do that. I don't even know if Carl Sagan himself knew about it. But the point is, Apple got a cease and desist letter saying you can't call your thing Project Sagan, even internally. So they changed it to Project BHA, which stood for Butthead Astronomer.
They can't even use it internally? That's crazy.
I don't know. That's, lawyers are touchy, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry. I love that. So this was called Project Baxter.
Yeah. What did we call Top Secret beforehand? It was
yes, it was Project it was on the tip of my tongue just a moment ago. Let me find it out while you keep talking here.
So anyway, so this was it was going to be a games as service product, which I absolutely hate that. So
Acrid Herald,
that's it. Yeah.
Acrid Herald. It was something that was I don't even know what the meaning of it was. Anyway, sorry.
But I hate games as service products. I want to be able to buy the game and play it.
Huh? What's a game? I know what software as a service is, but what's a game as a service?
It's basically what it boils down to is it's a game it's a business model that focuses on continuous revenue throughout ongoing updates, new content, player-driven monetization rather than a one-time purchase. Yeah. I hate those.
But I still don't know what it is.
So in other words, you're playing the game, you have in-app purchase type thing. It's like you're playing the game and a new package comes out with new characters or new weapons or whatever. So you're constantly just like buying new stuff, buying stuff while you're playing. So this game, instead of paying $50, like back in the day, you pay $50 or $80 or whatever a game costs, and then you have the game. That's it. No, you have to keep spending money on it, and they do this stuff. I absolutely hate this model because it winds up the video game companies wind up releasing games early. They don't finish everything because
in the world where you can always do updates. No, but when you had to release physical media for a piece of software, which I guess I don't know what they called it back in the floppy disk days, but in the CD and DVD days, you called it going gold.
Okay,
Gold Master. Mm-hmm. So when you go gold, it better work because it's going out to 1 million people on physical media. You can't update it.
Right.
And isn't it so much better that we can release everything directly and you can update it? No, because now people throw out broken crap.
Right. It happened to me with the Star Wars game, Battlefront. There were 2 of them that came out back in the day on PlayStation, and I loved them. Favorite video game ever. And then they were going to do a 3rd one, and then they wound up not doing it. Blah blah blah. Years go by, and then one of the oh goddamn, it's like 10 years now. They came out with a new Battlefront, and I was like so excited. I actually went and bought a new PlayStation just to play that game because I loved the game and I was so happy it came back. And it wasn't good. But the biggest thing I hated about it is the game was only like 75% done.
Yeah.
Then you had to buy a DLC to get the rest of the stuff, to get more characters and weapons and stuff. And I was just like, so I was, like $100 and some in on this game, and I still didn't even really like it. And I was just like, you know what? This really soured me to this whole model.
Yeah. And so good. I'm glad Project Baxter died. Shut up, Baxter.
Right.
Baxter.
Now,
what are you?
Now the downside
Baxter sounds like a stuffy butler in a 1980s sitcom that wasn't very funny.
Yeah. Like,
oh, look, everybody, it's Baxter.
And it's got to be
Baxter. Are you stuck up?
Right. And it's an American one, and Baxter's the English guy. It's like
the one English
Baxter.
Guy. Yeah, and he's got Oh, I don't want to go to. Yeah, okay, fine, it's dead. But this sucks. So they lost a lot of people. But okay, screw whatever they were doing. But it's a real shame for the employees.
Yeah, because like it says 44 employees, split between staff and contractors, laid off. The company lost $27.2 million in development costs. So they went $27.2 million into this deal and then canceled it. I would love to know the story behind that, because they didn't say anything about why or what. There was no inside whatever.
Because we've been talking on here about how Wizards is getting a lot better at thinking about digital, bringing everything together. They don't want to have that situation where people get laid off just because a project ends. Yeah. So this must be kind of the last gasp of the old guard.
Yeah, it was probably one of those things where there were so many complicated bits to it that the new guy who was running was just like, yeah, you know what? We're just going to cancel it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they said that Project Baxter was one of the several, as we said, several of the video games in development. But we talked about the one by Giant Skull that seems to be still going. And then 2 other games from in-house studios owned by Hasbro. Wizards of the Coast also recently announced plans to open a new video game studio in Montreal, dedicated to developing new D&D video games. So they really are centralizing everything.
That's really good. We just saw in the Strong Museum Pool of Radiance, one of the first. I don't think it was the first D&D video game. I think the first one was probably it's not the first D&D software, but the first maybe D&D game. Right. But Gary in the 1980s talked, at least publicly, somewhat about the idea of where video games could be the next thing for this. I think I don't think there's anything against the spirit of D&D or tabletop role-playing to have all these games. They've been around since the beginning. And as long as it's not stopping people from playing the tabletop, it's great to see good things coming out.
Yeah, and like you said, one of the things I hope, being that they're centralizing and trying to like focus, instead of like this person's doing one project and that person's doing another project, and these 2 don't talk to each other or anything, I'm kind of hoping that they'll do what we talked about before and create like a crossover type thing, like an iconic, what's the word I'm looking for? Create a consistent universe where you have characters you can name and stuff. So like the next time they do a movie, it's about the characters or this group or I don't know, specific location or some history or something. I don't know, something that you can wrap your head around, instead of it just like, well, what is D&D? What's that world like? And it's like, well, it's monsters and this and that, but nothing. You can't talk about it like you talk about Star Wars or you talk about Star Trek. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it doesn't have its, set of core characters, etc.
Right.
But I would actually love it. What I'm gonna say is, from my perspective, I'm thinking about the old computer RPGs that we grew up with, but I think this works just as well for today. It's just a perspective issue. I would actually like to have a chance to go do something in CRPGs in between my real RPG gaming sessions,
Mhm.
where, maybe my character is adventuring and doing all the cool stuff with the group at the table, but then I want to go and do some of the things that happens outside of that world. I'm just going to live my Sims version in my house,
Mhm.
like I've got my spouse and my kids and my donkey outside, and this is what I do between adventures. Or it's time for me to level up and I'm going to play a video game where I get to do all the things that I need to do to learn my wizard skills or whatever it might be. I love to do a kind of thing like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Like maybe like a Sims type D&D game
Mhm.
where it's not about the fighting and all that as much, but it's about doing your day-to-day D&D sim stuff. And then that way you can justify, hey, I leveled up because I did my studying on this thing and I learned these new spells because of it.
Yeah.
That would be
I
kind of
actually, that
cool.
would be really cool, because you could just get together with your GM and say, let's role play some of this, but it's even better if you could do it, just kind of by yourself, because you have a lot of downtime. So
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot of things that could happen. Unfortunately, this is one that got canceled. So
Yeah.
goodbye, whatever it
Yeah.
was.
All right. And our last story
Yeah.
or
So
news story.
Kickstarter United workers. All right. So they're going on strike. It says October 2nd. So that means 3 days ago. Let me talk about who these guys are, first of all. So you can see their logo there, Kickstarter United, OPIU 153. I looked this up. The OPEIU is the Office and Professional Employees International Union. They have a lot of different people that are represented by this very large union. They are part of Local 153, which is New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. So some of the other people that are in the OPEIU, UPU, includes it has 103,000 employees in technology, credit unions, hospitals, insurance agencies, colleges and universities, hotels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is kind of white collar and gray collar workers. They are part of this, and they have gone. Yes.
What's a gray collar worker? I never heard of that.
Oh, sorry. A gray collar worker is not white collar or blue collar. It's more kind of in between. So that's, for example, somebody in the service industry, like a
Okay.
hotel front desk person.
All right, makes sense. Got it. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
You're not lifting heavy objects, but you're
Right.
also not sitting in an office.
Yeah, you're not installing lights, but you're also not managing stock portfolios.
Yeah, exactly. So what they are asking for, let me just see if I have it here. I know
It's
you
in the
brought it
notes.
up.
Check the notes.
Check the notes. Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right.
I collected some notes tonight.
I've lost the actual video. Where are we? There we are. Hello. Computers. Yeah. All right. So they are striking as of October 2nd. Their union demands. This is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not going to opine right at the top. Let me just kind of lay these all out. They want a 4-day, 32-hour work week, a minimum livable salary, and to prevent management from unilaterally increasing work hours without compensation. Management response: they refuse to guarantee the 4-day work week, rejected all proposals for minimum salary, and they want the ability to revert to a 5-day week based on an undefined business need. So I do know a little bit of the background here, which is that they've actually been doing a 32-hour work week for some time now. They basically want to enshrine it in their contracts. They want to say, we like this, we think we're productive, we want to lock it in. And management is saying, we want the freedom to go back to a 5-day week if it turns out that we need to. So kind of reasonable from both sides.
Yeah, I think so.
I can't imagine a company wanting to lock that in. Like doing it's one thing, being forced to do it is another, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is. I mean, those are some interesting demands. I'm not look. There's a part of me that hopes they get it because you know what? I really think society should be moving towards people working less. I mean, with all the automation and stuff that's happening nowadays, I think we should be benefiting from this automation. We humankind should be benefiting from advanced technology. I don't want there to be better technology so I can work harder. That's stupid.
Right?
Right? It's dumb. I hate
Yeah,
it. I mean,
yeah.
like, what is the point of advancing? But so I don't have anything against that. I mean, like if they get it, great. But at the same time, to be fair, companies have to make money or they stop being companies. So if that is detrimental to the company being able to make money, now I'm not focusing on profits. I don't know what they make in profit. I don't even know what kind of company structure they have.
Mhm.
All I'm saying is if the company can't survive paying its, workers a full-time salary with their full-time being 32 hours, then I mean, what are you going to do? Tank the company? And then nobody has a job.
I think this is a good argument. I will opine a little bit. There is a structure. I'm not going to get all the information right here, but there's a corporate structure you can do where you are a worker-owned company.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to pretend to understand the details of it or try to explain them right now, but basically the general idea is that if the workers own the company, then they're going to make the decisions that are best for the company, not just how much money they can make that week.
Mm-hmm.
So in a situation like that, you would hopefully have a representative for the workers and a representative for still management, because even though it's owned by the workers, somebody has to manage the thing.
Yeah, somebody has to run it.
You would have a discussion where they sat down and they looked and said, well, what's the best for the company? Okay, yeah, you know what? We can do a 32-hour work week and we can make all of our money, so let's do it. And then as workers, we could decide later, oh no, the company's going under. We better work 40-hour weeks. We'll do that too.
Right.
So it's a nice alternative to this constant fight between workers and owners if the workers are the owners.
Right.
But if you cannot do that, we'll see. I want to say one thing to be very clear. The union has said very loudly, very publicly, and repeatedly, do not boycott Kickstarter. They do not want you to boycott Kickstarter during this strike. They want you to continue backing projects, starting projects. They want the company to do well.
Mm-hmm.
So do not boycott Kickstarter. That is not the message. The message is simply that the people in the union are striking to get this done. I hope that it reaches an amicable result that's best for everybody. And I'm with you. It would be great if more companies started normalizing 4-day work weeks, because I think everybody deserves that. At this point in history, we can do as much in 4 days as we used to do in 5 days. There's
absolutely.
No reason not to give people 3-day weekends.
Right. And the science is in on that. They actually they've done studies on this, and it actually is true. People are actually as productive in 4 days as they are in 5.
Yeah, nobody show this podcast to anybody if I have to go back to work ever, but over the decades of my professional career, if I'm being honest, in a 40-hour work week, I probably spent about 15 hours doing actual productive work and about 10 hours in meetings or whatever, 15 hours in meetings, and at least 10 of that 40 hours was just spent absolutely getting nothing done.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
well, there's this perception that you show up to work at 9 a.m. Let's say 9, whatever time.
Go 9 to 5. What the hell?
Let's say 9 to 5, just to be simple. You start work at 9 and you work, and that's all you do. You work until lunch, and then you take your lunch break, and then you go back to work and you work until you leave. And that is bullshit. Nobody does that. Right.
Nobody does that.
And you know what? No one can.
And you know what? The more somebody says, "Oh, I'm working so many hours, I'm so busy," the less they're actually doing.
Yeah.
They're not doing any of that. In fact, there have been studies showing that the more people talk about how busy they are, the less busy they really are.
Yeah, I believe it. I
You
believe
know,
it.
absolutely, we could, with the advances in AI, with the advances in productivity, with advances in everything, we could be at a productivity level that is more than enough to make everybody have a great standard of living and be working 3 days a week,
Yep.
you know?
I agree.
But
I agree.
it's gonna be long, drawn out. It's gonna have a lot of ugliness. If you look too close, it's gonna seem ridiculous. And then when you look back in history, it's gonna just be an easy couple of paragraphs in some sixth grader's textbook.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, it's not like it hasn't happened before. You know, at the turn of the century, not this century, the last one, you know, you had the sort of the corporations were, I mean, they were just out of control. They could do whatever the hell they wanted in America, at least.
Robber barons was the
Robber
phrase,
barons, yeah.
which I'll bet you anything is not allowed in textbooks anymore.
It's like it's a lot like when I hear people talk about libertarianism, and I'm not, this is not a bag on libertarianism, because every political party has, you know, their extreme, and then they
Hey,
have
look,
their
every
normal.
ideology has a couple good ideas in it.
Right. So in libertarianism, my argument is, once you take libertarianism far enough, like if you get deep enough into the concept and you say, all right, we're just going to adopt everything about it, you go back to that 1900, right? Where corporations just, they can force people to work 60 hours a week, and that's, out of that came the 40-hour week and the no child labor laws and all that kind of stuff. So a big change like that, comes with technological changes, which is what was going on then. There was the big technological changes. So we'll probably get there, I imagine.
The arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. I believe is the quote. And I don't think that's 100% true, because we have this idea that history always progresses forward, always getting better. Knowledge increases, justice increases, equality increases. But the fact is that in the year 150 BC, the Greek philosopher whatchamacallit, I don't know his name, Hippotales, worked out. First of all, in 150 BC, they already knew the Earth was round.
Yeah.
And not only did they know it was round, they knew how big it was. They got it.
They were very close.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So around the year 150 BC, this philosopher, which just meant somebody who loves knowledge, so scientist, mathematician rolled up all in one, said, hang on a second, we understand the math around circles. We know how big the Earth is. So we know that when the moon moves in front of the sun to make an eclipse, that it's covering the sun. So we could figure out, using degrees and the Earth, exactly how big that moon is. And they measured it. And then once they got that number, they said, now we can figure out how far away it is. And they measured that and they got that number, and they were right.
Yeah. Epicurus.
They were right to a number of decimal points that basically equated how good their measuring sticks were back in the day.
Yeah.
And yet, hundreds of years later, in the same part of the world of Europe, you had people going, oh no, the world is flat and a dragon is eating the moon.
Right. Yeah.
So we don't always advance.
But there are steps backwards.
We step backwards sometimes, but I hope we step forwards with this one.
Yeah. So interesting. When they say, there's no number on here, but when they say establish a minimum livable salary, and then they say they rejected all proposals for a minimum salary, I wonder what that means, because that sounds like, I was going to say, they're not striking because Kickstarter has done something bad, so that's why they're saying don't. They're not saying
Kickstarter's not a bad company. They just
they're
want
not doing
to
anything
establish certain negotiations with them. You can negotiate. That's fair.
I got to wonder what that means, though. Like that, those are just interesting. Those are two interesting sentences,
Well, here's my interpretation, which is completely made up out of my butt.
Right.
I think when they say Kickstarter has rejected minimum salary proposals, they're not saying we shouldn't have a minimum salary. I think they're just saying we don't agree with what you guys are saying.
Right. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
They purposely haven't released any numbers, and that's what they're probably negotiating over, is what that number is.
Now, livable wage gets a lot more tricky because it's a moving definition. First of all, you've got to define what it means to have a livable wage. There are some people who say a livable wage means that one person can support a family living in a home that's big enough for the family on a single wage. That's one definition of livable wage.
Mm-hmm.
There's another definition that says, as an individual, I need to be able to pay for my own housing and food and basically not be on public assistance, but I
Mm-hmm.
could have roommates, etc.
Sure.
Where they are defining it is probably somewhere in the middle. I don't know where. But it also means that a livable wage in Duluth is different from a livable wage in Miami, in New York, in Walla Walla, Washington, etc. So
I gotta wonder how much money Kickstarter makes. I mean, that's to me, that seems like a very interesting, because look, I know there's infrastructure. I know there's work that they have to do on the inside. But they take portions of every project, right? And they don't set the projects up, and they don't do any of the work on the project. We do that. Like, so when we do our Kickstarter, we set everything up. Now they built the infrastructure, and so I don't mind paying the fee. That I think that's totally fair. That totally makes sense, because you're paying for all the hard work that they did and everything they set up, and all that stuff. And they have to do some processing and stuff. But it really doesn't seem like, when they have a Kickstarter that makes $6 million, and they take what, 500,000 of that. Like, did they do 500?
Right. So basically, with Kickstarter, when you're doing a thing, you're giving up 10% of your take. Half of that goes to Kickstarter for their profit, and half of it goes to all the other fees that you're doing to deal with.
Yeah. So I mean, it's probably
I have
all
the
valid.
numbers
I just
here.
don't know the number. Oh, you do? Okay.
I have the numbers here. So their annual revenue, not that high actually in the grand scheme of things. About 113 million a year.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
It's good. So as of April this year, they received 8.7 billion in pledges. I don't know if that's, I'm just looking at some overviews. But the point is, about $100 million a year in revenue. And it says estimated revenue per employee is about $231,000. So I'm going to tell you right now, they're running on that. That's a tight margin.
Yeah, that is pretty tight. Yeah.
Because when you figure your cost of an employee, it's not just their salary. What do you double it or take it times 1.5?
I think it's 1.5.
Okay. So figure if their cost of so let's say that the average Kickstarter employee makes $100,000 a year. Maybe that's right. I mean, because in the tech world, 100,000 is very low salary.
Yeah.
That's like a junior or mid-level junior, whatever. But let's just assume that they average $100,000 per employee. So that would mean 150,000 is the cost of having an employee, which means if they make 231, then they're basically making about $80,000 a year off of each employee.
That's a pretty tight margin, because they've got to pay for all their infrastructure, their building, their server costs, their all that stuff, all of it,
all that stuff. So understandably, they would have to be careful about how they reduce their margins. So 32 hours a work week, cool. If they're producing at 32 hours a week, great.
Yeah.
But livable wage, if that means raises for people, how much can they raise them and still have enough? I looked it up. They're not a public company, so we don't know all the details. But as a private company, it's good and bad. On the one hand, if they were a public company, there would be fiduciary duties, right? because as a public company, the SEC says your main job is to provide shareholder value.
Yep.
So you are required by SEC rules to do everything you can to maximize profits, minimize expenses, and that includes don't pay people too much.
Right. Right.
But as a private company,
You do whatever you want.
They can do whatever they want. So they could take more of a hit on their profit margin in order to pay the employees more.
That's correct.
So who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? I will say this, whatever the outcome, there's going to be a very vocal group of people who are convinced that their opinion is going to move the needle one way or the other. Sorry, guys, you're full of shit. It's not going to happen.
Right, right. And I want to emphasize one more time, just because we've said it a couple of times. They said it. Do not boycott people back in Kickstarter, because those people, don't hurt those people. They have nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if we were running a project and people were like boycotting, it's like, great, we're getting punished for nothing. We didn't do anything. Like, that's awesome. Thanks a lot. That sucks. You know, so don't hurt the creators.
Yeah. I just looked at the chat again. I'm going to bring, so Brian says there's still people that think the world is flat.
That's true.
It's true. You know, they took one of the top one premier
Flat
earthers.
Yeah.
They flew him to Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
They showed him there's no ice wall.
Yep.
They did all the things that flat earthers say you can't do. The super high priority flat earther said, "You're right. I was wrong. You've shown me. I get it now." Every other flat earther said, "He's been paid off."
Yep. To what end? I don't get it. Why? Why would anybody pay him off? Pay him off for what?
What possible reason is there to hide the flat earth from the globe earthers? Globers. Yeah, Glober. Look at you, you Glober.
Dirty Glober.
Dirty Glober. I think it just shows that Robert Anton Wilson said that everybody has a reality tunnel.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We're all looking through a little paper towel cylinder.
Yeah.
At the world. And we see the version of reality that we see.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You're not watching a camera.
You know, there's people who, the sovereign citizen movement, who are convinced that not only do they not have to follow any of the laws of the United States because of some conspiracy theory they came up with, but they believe that every American citizen has a secret bank account with $1 billion in it that you can access if you just know the right magic words.
What the?
They fully believe it.
What, they think the government's hiding their $1 billion?
Yeah. Yeah. They have all these things they point to. I'm not going to get into it, but the point is that they've got all of these twisted logic reasons. And what it just shows you is that there's a lot of folks who are just going to see the world through a very narrow paper towel tube.
Right.
A Robert Anton Wilson reality tunnel.
Yeah.
And they're just going to see a flat earth, or they're going to see a secret bank account, or lizards running the world.
That stuff is all crazy, but I'm telling you, birds are fake. They're not real.
I love that conspiracy theory.
Isn't it? Isn't that the best?
My two favorite conspiracy theories are birds ain't real. And my other favorite one is Australia is not real.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah, Simon, we're not buying it. We're just not buying it.
Well, Simon's New Zealand, isn't he?
Yeah, but that's off the coast of that place that doesn't exist. So New Zealand can't exist.
There's a whole nother thing. There's a whole website called Maps Without New Zealand. And it's dedicated to all the world maps that were like, we didn't have room for it.
That's awesome.
I'm listening to John Cleese's autobiography right now, and I got to tell you, don't read it. Listen to the audiobook, because he reads the audiobook.
Oh, John Cleese. Oh, I can listen to him all day long.
There are few people in this world that I love more than John Cleese.
Yeah, he's the best.
In fact, there's nobody. I think he's of living people. There's people I love more than John Cleese, but they're not alive anymore.
Yeah, he's a fantastic
He doesn't
individual.
care. He lives his way. You know, he
Yeah.
doesn't belong to any group. He doesn't belong to any ideology. He's just John Cleese. You listen to the book. It's great because, you know, you listen to an audiobook and they're reading their words, right?
Yeah.
No, he's reading the book, but he keeps cracking up in the middle of it.
That's all right. That's it. That's on my list.
Like he's telling a story and then he just starts like laughing in that weird John Cleese laugh where he just kind of can't catch his breath.
Yeah.
And because he's remembering this great moment. Like the moment that they had a group of their troupe. He was originally in a comedy troupe called the Cambridge Circus, right? Because it's Cambridge Footlights. He was from Cambridge. A circus is just like Piccadilly Circus. It's just a little square. So
Yep.
Cambridge Circus was the name of it, which is why later on there was Monty Python's Flying Circus.
I see. Okay.
And he's telling a story about they did a show where they decided in the middle of it to pretend that everything had gone completely wrong and just failed. And so they send a guy out. They push one of the members out on stage to pretend. Well, actually, they push one of the people who's not normally on stage out there, and he pretends that he is just the worst comedian, worst everything in the world. But he's like, nothing's working. I got to fill the time. And he tells the worst jokes. He tries to do a song. He can't hold a note. And the whole time the audience doesn't know what to do because it's 1962. They're very, very repressed and
Right.
they're not going to laugh at this poor guy. And it didn't work at all. The bit did not work. It did not get laughs. It just got lots of embarrassment. But with John Cleese trying to read that part of the book, he just breaks down and he can't even get to the next sentence because it was just so funny to remember the poor guy standing out there pretending he couldn't sing.
Right. Right.
So definitely listen to John Cleese's book. Oh my God. Point is, do not boycott Kickstarter. I hope they win their strike if it keeps Kickstarter alive.
Yeah. All right. Hey, do we want to wrap it up with the memorial or?
Let's talk about it. Let's just really quickly go into it.
Okay.
I know we're running to a long show. It's funny. So here we have a show where our guest didn't even show up. Where are you, Paul? Paul, where are you? Our guest didn't even show up, and we're already at an hour and 12 minutes. Look at that.
Yeah, I know, right?
All right. So, but here's what we would have talked about with Paul if he had hold on. Did he reply? No, he didn't reply.
Okay.
Sorry. Somebody else sent me a message. Hi, Brad Walls. Anyways, if we had him on, and maybe we'll have him on soon, we were going to talk about the Guy Gax Memorial. So let's start with the headline. There is currently a Kickstarter, 25 days to go, trying to raise $150,000 to put in a memorial in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin to Gary Gygax. They have currently got 150 backers who have pledged $37,227 dollarinos.
This is not good.
Well, it could be good. It could be bad.
Well, I'm just saying, usually a Kickstarter that's looking for, whatever amount of money, you usually should be about halfway there in your first couple days.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you have your slow growth and then you get near the end and you raise your second half. Now, that's not every Kickstarter, but that's the general trend.
Yeah. Basically, Kickstarters, Kickstarter is like prison.
Okay. I'm game. What?
Why is Kickstarter like going to prison? Because they say that when you go to prison, no matter how long your sentence is, you only serve 2 days. The day you go in and the day you come out.
Oh, wow. Okay. And
Kickstarter is a lot like that. You really only have 2 days on a Kickstarter, no matter how long it is. If it's a 30, a 60, a 90 day, there's really only 2 days on a Kickstarter. There's the first day and the last day.
Yeah.
Everything in between is dribble, 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 dribble.
Yep.
So, and also, there's a lot of shared showering in both cases.
Oh God, yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right.
I mean, that's how we do our Kickstarters, right?
Yeah, pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, so you're right. They probably should have already been a lot closer to their goal than now.
Yeah.
First of all, we're going to save the deep analysis for when we get Paul to really come on, because I know he's going to come back. It's probably my fault. Who knows?
There was probably a mix up in the invite or something.
Just so everybody knows, here's what the deal was. I sent Paul a message saying, "Do you want to be on the show?" And he said, "Yep, sounds great." And then he asked me what the day of the show was. And I sent him a Google Calendar invite. So I set up a Google Calendar invite, put all the details in there. Here's the day, here's the time, here's the link, blah, blah, blah. Sent it to him to what I know is his personal email address, because Paul and I have talked. We're not friends, but we are acquaintances. We're friendly. I like Paul. We say hi when we see each other. He's a good guy. I like him. And I have his personal email address because we've talked about things. So I sent him a invite to what I believe is his personal email address. And he did not reply to the invite. I should have checked that. I should have said, "Wait a minute, Paul, are you really coming?"
Mm-hmm.
He probably should have said, "Jason, where's my invite?" But whatever, doesn't matter. I'm going to take the hit on this one. I didn't get super tight enough to make sure he was really coming on. So hopefully we'll have him again.
Right.
So anyway, we will ask him more details when he comes on. But the first thing is, I'm going to be a little bit critical here. They set the goal to $150,000. Now, that is how much money they need. But anybody who knows Kickstarter, who's run Kickstarter campaigns, knows that if you really want to hit your goal, you put a fake number in, you put a lower number in.
Mm-hmm.
This is the minimum we absolutely need to survive. Like, we definitely have to have this much. Mm-hmm. If we get at least this much, we'll do it. Because if you have set a lower goal, people donate faster. People want to back a winner. If they see that you're close to getting it, they're going to back more.
Yeah, there's a whole psychological piece to this where, like, people, it's funny because, like, it's like, well, they're only going to make it if people put money in. But if you're like, but they might not make it, so I'm not going to put money in. But it's like, but you don't have to pay if they don't make it. So
but
just
nobody
put money
thinks
in
that way.
But nobody thinks that way, right? It's a psychological thing. It
is ridiculous how effing stupid we are as a species.
We are, yeah, yep.
And sometimes, you know what? I'm not even going to blame us. It's not even stupid. Sometimes our brains are just funny.
Yeah. Well, it's because, like, you think about it. We were evolved, millions of years to survive, and this thing we call society is the smallest fraction of our evolution. We're not evolved to live this life. We make it. We're able to live in it, but we were not evolved to live like this. So yeah, there's a lot of dumb stuff that we do, or dumb things that happen, because this is not normal for mammals.
No, John Cleese, going back to John Cleese, I don't know, somewhere around the year 2000 or so, he funded this is at the point that he's already richer than Croesus.
Right.
He funded an academic study on the intelligence of cats.
Okay.
And he did it specifically because his vet had been rude about how smart his cat was.
Right.
He's like, "I'll show you."
Right.
So he did an academic study to find out just how intelligent are cats. And at the end of this multi-million-dollar study that he personally paid for out of his pocket, the explanation from the researchers was cats are incredibly good and incredibly intelligent at all the things that they need to be intelligent about.
Right.
And that's true for humans too.
Mm-hmm.
We're intelligent only at the things that evolution has decided we need to be intelligent about.
Correct. That's correct.
There was explanation about the loudest sound in the world that I saw on YouTube recently. Turns out sound is super subjective. You can't just say how loud something is. It's how loud is it to you. So the decibel scale is at a human level. And for example, the highest possible decibel level, the loudest sound that could occur theoretically in the atmosphere before it just created a vacuum and there's no more sound, 194 or 198 decibels. That's well above the level that would kill a human being.
Oh my God. Yeah. I think it was like 1,000 decibels would blow the earth apart or something like that.
Wow.
Because it's sort of a logarithmic scale, isn't it? Like
it's a logarithmic scale. Yeah. And remember, volume is just another word for a sound wave. It's just another word for a pressure wave.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, and it's different depending on the atmosphere and the medium and everything else. So like, for example, you can get much higher decibel levels underwater.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a really commonly repeated claim that if you listen to a sperm whale's song, it would be 230 decibels. But that's not really true because it's in the water.
Right. Yeah.
Up in the normal atmosphere, it would be only 125 decibels. So, which is basically like standing right next to an air raid siren.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, it'd blow your eardrums out.
Yeah, that's how loud a whale song is. But the point is, it's all very subjective and measurable and everything else. So I think we're talking about how much money a Kickstarter needs. You've just got to measure it subjectively. You've got to say, what can I really get away with?
Right.
Never set your Kickstarter goal so low that if that's all you raised, you couldn't fulfill the thing. But also don't set it to the real number you need, because have another plan, man. You know,
not only that, but like, you know, you do things like backer kit and stuff like that, so that let's say you do fund and it's lower than you really kind of need, like man, I kind of really need more. You would still have things in the backer kit that you could sell to make up for it. I got to imagine he could, you know, they could get super transparent
here. Let's be super transparent and honest. When we do a Kickstarter, I set the level to how much we don't have.
Okay.
So, for example, with the last, I don't even know. I'm gonna look this up. I'm gonna get this right. I'm gonna go to Kickstarter. I'm gonna look at our own stuff and say, so we said last time that we did Forge with Fire. We said that we needed $1,000 to put it out, and we raised a little over $15,000.
Right.
The truth is, no, $1,000 did not pay for the whole thing, but we took the amount it was really going to cost. I'm not being coy and trying to hide numbers. I just don't remember. But we took whatever it would really cost to print all of these things, because there was a lot of extra stuff in there. And we said, how much do we have in the bank right now? And how much are we missing? You know what? With $1,000, we could do this.
Right.
Cool. Okay. We'll probably have to dig into our pockets, but
we would take a loss, but we could finish it.
We're not going to not make it.
Right.
And so we hit the goal right away. Everybody was excited. They wanted to keep on putting money in because now it's a winner. We got $15,000. So if he needs 150,000, he could have said, 10 grand will do it, and maybe raised it faster. But if he didn't actually have the money, if they really needed 150 and there was no other revenue sources, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, we'll have to ask him.
But here's the thing: 25 days to go. It can absolutely still hit it. So we're gonna look at the tiers, and then we're gonna talk about let's talk about the money first before we look at the tiers.
Okay.
Because Paul put this up, and so did some other people on the various socials. There's been a lot of talk about it. I know Eric Tenkar has done a story about it. I think that a bunch of people have. Tabletop, Tap Room, etc. But the weird history on this that we want to ask Paul about is the Gygax Memorial was, I'm looking to see if I have the books behind me on the shelf here. It was come up with long ago, long time ago,
years ago.
And Wizards of the Coast said, we'll help you. We'll put out a special version of the first edition AD&D books. We're going to reprint them with a special cover. And the money is going to go to this memorial. And they raised, I forget if this is in metric or imperial units, but they raised about 1 buttload of money.
Okay, yeah.
About 1 buttload.
1 buttload. Ooh, that's a lot.
Yeah. Gail Gygax was running the Gygax Memorial Fund at the time. I don't know how enforceable this is, but I am legally prevented from saying bad things about Gail Gygax. I have a non-disparagement agreement,
right,
which she has violated.
She said bad things about you? Oh my God.
But I'm not going to violate it. So I'm not going to say anything about how the fund was handled. I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to masticate. I'm not going to prevaricate.
Like, you can't say that it really looks like it was mismanaged. I can say that because I don't have anything against it.
I would never say anything like that.
Right.
I don't know what happened.
Right. I mean, to me, it really looks like it was mismanaged badly. That's my opinion.
Who can say?
Who can say? Who knows?
Maybe Paul can say when he comes on next week. But the facts are, as far as I am aware, that all that money is gone.
Which is really weird because of all that money and there's no memorial and nothing to show for it. That seems really weird.
I would never speculate about whether that was weird or not. I don't know.
Right.
No. I'm unaware of the weirdness of that situation. But I do know that I've read plenty of people in the comments online saying, what happened to the money the first time around?
Right.
I do not know what happened to the money the first time around.
Yeah.
The only things that I know is that there was a first time around. I believe that Gail Gygax, which is Gary's widow, not his first wife, but his second wife, was, I believe, in charge of the memorial at the beginning and made some progress, but it didn't come to fruition.
Right.
And I do believe that the money from that first approach is gone now. So people are legitimately asking, where is it?
Right.
I gave money. Where's the memorial?
Right.
Now, that being said, let me change gears. In the first iteration of this, there was no publicly visible plan for what the memorial would look like. It was just sort of a abstract concept of there will be a statue. It wasn't even clear where it was going to be. I'm not going to get into the details of exactly where it's going to be because I don't know all of them, but I think there was a lot of time spent dealing with the city of Lake Geneva on where it could be. So here's what I know about where we are today.
Right.
It has been agreed with the city where it can be. If anybody's ever dealt with municipal governments, you know what a crazy situation that is. I'm sure it took a lot of time. So we know where it's going to go. And the next thing we know is what the proposed design is. And it is beautiful.
Yeah.
We have a picture of it up on the screen right now.
Yeah, it looks nice. Looks really cool.
It's Gary sitting at the head of the table. It's a life-size I'm assuming bronze sculpture.
That's what it
They're
looks
usually
like. Yeah.
bronze,
Yeah.
right? Bronze sculpture of Gary Gygax sitting on a very ornately carved, beautiful chair at the head of a table as the dungeon master running a game of Dungeons and Dragons. And here's what I love about this proposal. The table that he's sitting at, it's outdoors, it's a statue. It's a concrete table, full-sized. It's got 2 benches. It's essentially the size of a picnic table, but sculpted of concrete. And it looks, I don't know what you think. It looks to me like it's going to have a bronze top as well. Do you think that's what they're saying?
Yes, I think so. That it looks to me like he's going to be bronze. His chair is going to be bronze. The tabletop is bronze, and the rest of it looks like concrete.
Yeah. So basically, when this sits down by the lake in Lake Geneva, I'm assuming near the library, for those who know Lake Geneva pretty well, this is going to be sitting there. You know, as much as we think that tabletop gaming is this big deal and everybody knows everything, most people in the world have no idea who Gary Gygax is.
Right.
Most visitors to Lake Geneva have no idea who Gary Gygax was. And so most statues are a statue of some person up on a plinth, kind of high, right? Like usually their feet are about 8 feet up, so you can't really look them in the eye. And it's just somebody in a heroic pose doing a thing, and you're like, okay, here's a statue to somebody that did a thing. And if you're walking past, you look over, and what do you think? You think statue.
Yeah, you think statue.
You don't think anything else. Statue.
Right.
Yeah, probably somebody who won a war or built a business or invented something or cured something or killed something or what.
Right. Or a bunch of somethings.
But most people are going to look at a statue and be like, statue. That's the end of it. They don't care. If they even care a little bit, maybe they walk over and read the plaque and go, huh, that's neat. And they move on. But here, you've got a memorial where you have a seated bronze statue at a table, Gary at the table running D&D. And if you've never heard of Gary Gygax, if you don't know what D&D is, if you don't know any of this stuff, you're going to look over and be like, the hell is that?
Right.
What is that? Why the guy sits why he sits at the table? What? Why?
Right.
And you're going to go over, and even if you don't read anything, you're going to sit down and you're going to look at the statue of a guy throwing some dice, and you're going to be like, I kind of get it. Something's going on here.
It's definitely gonna spark curiosity for sure.
Simon in the chat is saying, looks like it would be prime for monument photobombing, maybe in ways that people would not have imagined.
Oh my God.
Hell
Probably. Yep.
And you know what? Gary was a gamer. All the people he spent his life with were pranksters and goofies and everything else.
The stories of the pranks they used to pull.
He'd probably love it.
Yeah.
He'd probably love it, right?
Well,
but now, go ahead.
I was going to say what is really cool about this is that you could sit with your friends and play a game of D&D at this table, you know, quote unquote, with Gary. You know, it's just, that's kind of cool. And I don't know, I don't really have a really strong personal connection with all this. But some people really do. And I could see somebody sitting down and just like talking to the statue and saying, hey man, thanks. This really changed my life. You know, for some people that's really, that's a really strong emotional thing that they can do. That's, you know, it's good for them. If it's good for them, then I'd go for it.
Me too. And Brian Kowalczyk in the chat says, if I was there, I'd play D&D on this table.
Yeah. So I could see that.
Bet you that is so going to be a thing every year when it's time for EggCon run by Heidi Gygax or GaryCon run by Luke Gygax or just anything, any gamer. This is going to be a pilgrimage.
Yeah. You're going to have lines of people during those events. You're going to have lines of people to this thing.
They're going to sit down at the monument, and they're going to play D&D with Gary at the head of the table.
Yeah.
And the kid who has never heard of D&D, or the adult who's never heard of D&D or doesn't know what anything is going to still walk over and be like, what is going on? Why is there a monument of a guy sitting at a table? And they're going to read and they're going to find out. And some of them are going to want to know. And they're going to, I just think this is one of the coolest ideas I've ever seen for a monument.
Yeah, it's really good.
So I am going to say now, we'll see what we say when Paul comes on, but I'm going to say now, yes, I think there are things that I cannot say anything about the first monies. I don't care. I want to see this exist. I want to see it happen. I want this Kickstarter to be successful. I want Paul to come on and help us understand and explain to people why, yes, put your money in. You want to see this happen. Let's just take a look at what the Kickstarter is actually like.
Okay.
So what's the deal here?
So, you got your lower pledges, of course, and this is probably just for the $5, it's probably just so you can follow along and like you're just giving them money for the thing. Hold on a minute.
So there's a bunch of levels. There are first through 8th level adventurers, and then you get warrior, epic warrior, guardian, epic guardian, hero, epic hero, knight, epic knight, champion, epic champion, all the way up to Lord of Gygax. So from $5 up to $10,000.
Yeah, hold on. Let me look at this.
It basically starts out at the first level. You get, for $5, you get to be on the Gygaxian Wall of Honor.
Yeah.
And the Gygaxian Scroll of Honor. I don't know what those are.
Right. I think I think the scroll is probably something they're going to print out and they'll send it to you. The Wall of Honor, I'm not sure exactly what that is. It doesn't really say. That is likely something online, maybe. I don't know.
I personally think they're both digital.
Okay.
But it doesn't say.
But that's fine. I mean,
if they're printing an actual Scroll of Honor, and if it gets, okay, we got 150 backers now, it's gonna need about 5 times what it's currently at. So that means they're gonna need about, oh my God, help me with the math. What is it?
5 times? Oh, 500 and 250, 750.
So you're going to need a scroll that has 750 names on it. I don't think they're printing that because for $5, there's no money left over for the monument.
Yeah, no. You're probably right. It's probably digital. And it's probably, it's probably just like a form filled out thing where it has your name on it or something, and they send it to you. Probably email it to you.
Fair.
And then you also get this Greystern Castle and Lands and Ruins.
These get the PDF maps and keys for this mini level mega dungeon. I don't know what that means. I don't know who made it. I don't know what it is, but good job.
That's cool. Whatever. Yeah.
So okay, $5, you're in. You should not get too much.
I mean, come on, it's $5. They gotta put this money towards making that thing.
Just give $5 and shut the hell up.
Yeah, it's like you can keep whatever. Just give me this.
So $10. Now you get. I'm confused. Your name or your adventure group's name. Now you get PDFs.
Seems like you're getting all the same stuff.
It looks the same to me. I don't know what it is.
Which again is fine, whatever, $10.
Maybe it's more levels of Greystern Castle.
All right, levels 1 to 2. Level 1. Yeah, you're getting more of the castle.
Yeah, I think basically as you go up for $15, I think basically as you go through the levels 1st through 8th of Adventurer of Gygax, what you're basically getting is more of the castle.
Yeah, okay.
All the way
up that's what it looks like. Yep.
Now, 8th level is $150.
Let's see. Yeah.
You're getting essentially a PDF, and I don't get it. Paul, come on the show. Explain this to us. I don't
Well,
know.
I think, it's honestly, this is really about, it's really about just putting money towards the memorial. What you're getting is the memorial. That's what you're really getting.
Yeah.
This other stuff is, I mean, it's just stuff you have to give people stuff to make this system work, to make the Kickstarter system work.
Brian on the chat says, "Hey, you should have a guest on to explain this."
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. You are funny.
And by the way, Simon asks, "Do they have a particular artist or sculptor named yet?" I don't know. Originally at one point I think it was going to be Stefan Picorni from
Dwarven Fortune.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know. But whatever.
Well,
it'll be
flipping
great.
through.
I think they did. I believe I remember reading something that said that the sculptor who was going to do it was so excited about it that he's like, normally I don't give a crap, but now I give a crap, and it's going to be great. So I think they do. If only Paul was here to explain it.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. So Gygaxian Wall of Honor. So all adventures will be listed on a Wall of Honor. This is a website. So your name will appear on a website. Your Scroll of Honor is a PDF that you'll receive that has
it's a PDF you can print out.
Yeah, whatever. So you get that, and then there's the dungeon. So
does it say who made it? Hold on. It says created by game designer Paul. Okay, cool. You know what? This is cool. Fine. So Paul Stormberg has created a castle called Castle Greystern.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to assume that he's done this in a Gygaxian way. Remember, so if you're here last week, we had Tim on to talk about all the different versions of Castle Greyhawk that have existed.
Right.
Castle Greyhawk is it's in your heart, man. Oh, by the way, I just want to call out, I've had this sticking out of my pocket the whole time. Let me make a quick call out. I know we're running long here, so House of Books and Games may not still be on, but I stopped in today to drop off some of our stuff, and I bought a Munchkin box, and they had, look at all these bookmarks they had. If you play Munchkin, these bookmarks all give you special deals that you can do in the game Munchkin. All of these things.
Nice.
They had so many. And they even had the shop at your friendly local game store, not local friendly game store, go up a level. So if you go to a game store that participates and they sign it, HBG, House of Books and Games, go up a level in Munchkin. Look at that. Look at all
that's nice
they gave me.
That's cool.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. So there is a website that'll put your name on it. There is a PDF that'll print your name on it. The website will die.
Eventually, yes.
That's how websites work.
Mm-hmm.
The PDF is a digital file that'll sit on your computer. Hooray. Greystern Castle is probably going to be a good dungeon in a Gygaxian manner.
Right.
That would fit in well to a Greyhawk campaign. If you are giving money because you care about being on one of these digital rolls of honor or getting this dungeon, and that's why you're giving it, you are not getting your money's worth. I don't give a crap. That's not why you're giving your money.
No.
If you're giving $150 to be level 8, it's because you want to see this memorial exist.
Yeah, because PDF's not worth that. I mean,
no, that's not the point.
That's
the
not
point of this is make the memorial.
Yeah.
Give something to gamers.
Now at $250, you get a paver with your name.
That's
That's right.
Oh. So as you go from 250 up, Warrior, Epic Warrior, Guardian, I guess you're basically getting bigger pavers? Better location?
There's 4x8, 4x12. Yeah, let me go back to the rewards. least we figured out what those rewards were.
Yeah. So
All right,
basically,
so-
it looks like what they're saying is, first of all, back this because you want to see the memorial exist, not because you're trying to get goodies.
Mhm.
The goodies are not worth the money you're spending. Damn right, they better not be, because the point is to get the money to the memorial.
Yep.
Did somebody mismanage the funds earlier? I don't know. I'm legally prevented from speculating about that.
But I'm not. So I'm going to say it looks like it to me.
La la la. I didn't hear that. Sorry, was so busy looking at something else. I don't care. I want this memorial to exist. Back the Kickstarter. If you back at a adventurer level, you're gonna get some neat digital crap. Fine. If you back at any of the Guardian levels, epic hero, knight, epic knight, blah 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 blah, you're gonna get your name on a brick. The more you spend, I think the bigger the brick's going to be and the closer the statue it's going to be. That's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
The only people that are ever going to notice that are you and your family and your friends, but still go there and look at it. But spend the money because you care, because you want this to exist.
Yeah, no one else walking up there is going to give a crap about your name on it. This is for you and your family and your friends. This is for you.
Now, there are questions to be answered. I don't know the details. I heard something at ShireCon. I think Eric Tenkar talked about it on his podcast, that there was a big donor from the West Coast. I'm not going to say the amount of money they put up, but it got taken back for some sort of issues related to how things were managed. Now, this is in the past. It's not where we are today. I don't think $150,000 is that much to ask from individual donors. I hope they get it. If they don't, I hope a whale who can do a song at a volume loud enough to make your ears bleed comes in and gives the rest of the money.
Yeah.
I just want it to exist. So
like maybe you'll see it'll be at like, maybe like 80,000. And then all of a sudden, last like hour of the campaign, all of a sudden, boom, maybe some rich folk will jump on there and put some money in.
So, I know how big our reach is for this podcast. Unless somebody's going in to pledge, unless our listeners pledge 10,000 each, I don't think we're going to push them over the edge with this. But give your $5, give your $10, give your $100, whatever.
Every bit counts.
If they don't reach the goal,
you don't pay anything.
Yeah. I want them to reach the goal. So we hope Paul will come on our show. We hope that the monument will reach its goal. We hope it'll exist. That we just don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah. All right, well, let's wrap it up then. We'll talk to Paul. Sure. We'll talk to Paul soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. Didn't hear back from him. I didn't get a message back.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for an hour and 48 minutes and 37 seconds.
38 seconds, actually.
Right.
Sorry, 40 seconds.
And we will see you all next. Oh, next week. You're going. When are you going to Ireland?
Good Lord. Okay, so October 18th, I will be running Top Secret at houseofbookinggames.com con HBG Con. I was going to go down to New Jersey for the Vintage Computer Festival flea market, but that's too far to go, so screw that. But then the next thing is I will be at GaelCon in Dublin, Ireland on when is it going to be? I should know. They don't make it easy to find out. What the heck? I don't know when it is. I don't know. It's probably on my calendar. It's later in the month. It's like oh, here we go. October October 24th to the 27th.
Right.
I will be appearing in Dublin, Ireland at GaleCon. I'll be running Top Secret there. I am ridiculously excited about this.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
I am also 100% convinced I'm going to pronounce everybody's name wrong.
Right.
Because the spelling of Irish names in the English alphabet is not logical to the English speaker. But
not as bad as Welsh, but
I will do my best. But I'm super excited. So come to Dublin on October 24th and play Top Secret with me.
Yeah. Yep. All right, then. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you in the Discord if you are a Patreon paid member.